I'm Anthony Kaczynski from Fireking. Fireking is a very loud pop band.
Yeah.
I think I like to make as much noise as possible and still have a lot of melody come through.
Okay.
And it's sort of a classicist vein, you know. We take our inspiration from something like the first Cheap Trick record or The Move or British Invasion stuff, but we just sort of rev it up a bit. I was in a band with Michael Smith, who's the drummer from Fireking, many, many years ago in the 80s into the early 90s, called Figures on a Beach. We were a bit of a techno-pop band, and at the time I was a keyboard player and the singer. We had a couple albums on Sire at the time, and that was a great experience, but, you know, I got out of music for a little while, but music doesn't really ever leave you. And I started learning how to play guitar, and so I needed a vehicle to have new songs, to be able to play them. And I started talking to Michael again, and we started just kicking around, and we had a lot of fun doing it, just the two of us. And it just sort of morphed into coming down here 2 nights a week and rehearsing. And we've been doing that for quite some time. And we'd never had a full-time bass player, but in the last year and a half, we've had this young gentleman named Drew Morrison, who's been really helpful and great to play with. So we're actually like a real band now. I have loved music my entire life. There somewhere exists a reel-to-reel tape of me from 1962 singing Hound Dog. You know, took piano lessons from the neighbor classical pianist when I was young, and I've been in band since I was 13 years old. So I was always the kid who you could call up to play a Fender Rhodes keyboard or something like that. So it's been pretty much what I wanted to do my whole life. When I was in high school, I was playing in bands that did the whole thing where you play in bars and you play the hits of the day and you play 4 sets a night and all that, right out of that. And then I grew up in the Detroit area, and of course in the late 70s when the whole punk thing exploded, and all of a sudden there were venues where you could play your own music, and it was really exciting to do that. And so I fell in with a bunch of folks. We started this really aggressively experimental band called Razor 1922, and we started making some noise, and it morphed into Figures, which got to be very popular in Detroit in the early 80s, from about 81 to 85, and then we moved here to Boston in 85 and continued it from there. I don't know that it was necessarily the right move for us musically, because we were kind of a synth pop band, and that didn't really fit the Boston ethos so much. In fact, I think Fireking is much closer to what a Boston band, if there's any such thing, sounds like. Yeah. We got signed to Sire about 9 months to the day that we came out here, which was a lot of folks around here might have been like, who are these guys and how did they get a record contract so fast? But we'd been playing for a long time and working it really hard. So then we did a couple albums there and did pretty well with it. And then as things do, you know, we were together for 12 years. It kind of ran its course. I started a court reporting business with my wife. She started it actually, and I tagged on, and you know, tried to resume real life. But you know, music doesn't leave you that easily. Not when it's your whole life. So I was always writing songs and kind of hacking around and kind of just generally being miserable not playing. And I decided I'm going to get a rehearsal space anyways again and just do it. And then I started talking to Michael again, and this is, gosh, a while back. And we came down and we had some synergy together, even with just playing guitar and drums. We could make a lot of noise for just 2 people. So,
Is that the objective?
Yeah, I mean, Figures was kind of polite, you know? And I liked the ideas. It's, you know, some people have their midlife crisis and they go out and they buy a sports car or whatever. Mine was to, like, you know, get a Marshall, a guitar, and play very loudly. And it's sort of progressed, you know. Now we're incorporating some different things. It's not quite as brute force of an animal as it was, but the early stuff was. Well, David Bash has these wonderful things. There'll be like 40 bands over 4 nights.
Yeah.
And he does them in New York, Chicago, LA, he does it in Boston. And everybody gets like 20, 25-minute sets. But it's really efficient. You get to see 8 bands in a given night, and most of them are thematically, I won't say they're identical, but they're thematically similar in that they write songs.
Yeah.
Songs with discernible hooks and choruses and all that. So that's kind of the thing. And I remember doing the one, it was at TT's in '04, and we had a really good time, and he was walking around with a shirt said IPO Liverpool, and I told him, boy, I would love to do that. And he goes, well, do it. And he just invited us. So, it's funny, they rebuilt the cavern on the exact same space where the old cavern was, and they created it exactly to look like the old one, which is a little bit like that old Stephen Wright joke about, burglars came into my house and they replaced all my furniture with exact replicas.
Right.
It's the same club, so it's kind of funny. It was a complete blast. And we wound up, doing really funny touristy things, like you go on the Magical Mystery Tour bus tour, which you would think would be kind of cheesy. It was amazing. It was amazing. Realizing that a lot of this stuff is more personal to me than I let on at first, but it's, we're a heavily psychopharmacologized, if that's a word, age, where there's sort of a pill for everything. And when you're getting older, or when you're having depression, or when you're having sexual problems, or any of that stuff. So I'm just sort of looking at the way life is around me right now and seeing how heavily medicated everybody is, and trying to break away from that a little bit. So that's kind of what that's about.
Oh, that's interesting. Cool.